Origins of the Plantagenets. The Plantagenet dynasty, which ruled England from 1154 to 1485, is one of the most influential in English history, leaving a legacy of legal, political, and cultural innovations. However, the roots of this powerful lineage lie in the 12th century, shaped by the ambitions of Geoffrey of Anjou and Empress Matilda, and solidified during the turbulent period known as the Anarchy. Let's explore the origins of the Plantagenets, including Geoffrey of Anjou's foundational role, the civil strife that defined the Anarchy, evolving historiographical perspectives on Matilda's leadership, and the broader context of Angevin politics and culture that shaped this enduring dynasty. Geoffrey of Anjou's legacy, the emergence of a dynasty. Geoffrey of Anjou, the patriarch of the Plantagenet dynasty, played a pivotal role in establishing the family's prominence in European politics. Born in 1113 to Fulk V, Count of Anjou and later King of Jerusalem, Geoffrey inherited the county of Anjou, Maine, and Touraine. His marriage in 1128 to Empress Matilda, the daughter of King Henry I of England and widow of Holy Roman Emperor Henry V, positioned Geoffrey as a crucial figure in Anglo-Norman succession disputes. A strategic marriage. Geoffrey's marriage to Matilda was not only a personal alliance but a meticulously crafted political maneuver. The union represented the merging of two powerful houses, Normandy and Anjou, each with its own claims and aspirations. By aligning with Matilda, Geoffrey extended Angevin influence into England and gained legitimacy through association with the Norman dynasty. This marriage also established a lasting connection between Anjou and England, setting the stage for what would later become the Angevin Empire. Geoffrey's military and administrative reforms. Known for his martial prowess and administrative skill, Geoffrey consolidated his territories and laid the foundation for his son, Henry II, to inherit a vast empire. His epithet Plantagenet, derived from the broom plant, Plantagenista, he adopted as his personal emblem, symbolized the enduring identity of the dynasty. Geoffrey's emphasis on chivalric values, fortifications, and strategic alliances profoundly influenced his descendants. Geoffrey implemented innovative administrative practices in his territories, including streamlined tax collection and record-keeping systems, which would later be reflected in the governance strategies of his son Henry II. These practices set a precedent for the centralization of power and the professionalization of royal administration, key features of the Plantagenet rule. Cultural and political innovations. A synthesis of traditions. Geoffrey's court blended Angevin, Norman, and Frankish traditions, fostering a vibrant cultural milieu. This synthesis shaped the Angevin Empire's governance and diplomacy, creating a framework that Henry II would expand upon. Geoffrey's court emphasized the importance of loyalty, military strength, and administrative competence, traits that defined the Plantagenet rulers. Geoffrey's court also served as a center of cultural patronage. Poets, chroniclers, and scholars thrived under his rule, and the Angevin court became a hub for the dissemination of ideas. This cultural dynamism not only elevated the prestige of the Plantagenet dynasty but also helped establish their broader legacy as patrons of learning and the arts. Fortifications and military strategy. Geoffrey's legacy included innovations in castle building and military strategy. His construction of fortified strongholds across Anjou demonstrated his understanding of the importance of secure territorial control. These castles were more than just military structures, they symbolized authority, stability, and the ruler's ability to protect his subjects. Key examples include Château de Chinon and Château d'Angers, which not only fortified his territories but also served as administrative centers. These strongholds embodied the Plantagenet emphasis on blending military utility with architectural grandeur, a tradition that would be carried forward by his descendants. Marriage alliances and diplomacy. Geoffrey's marriage to Matilda exemplifies his strategic acumen. This union was not merely a personal alliance but a political maneuver designed to assert Angevin influence over England. By securing Matilda's claim to the English throne, Geoffrey positioned their descendants to dominate both sides of the Channel. His deft navigation of feudal politics in France ensured stability within his own territories, setting the stage for Henry II's eventual consolidation of the Angevin Empire. The Anarchy, 1135 to 1153, a period of chaos and transition. Political chaos and rivalry. The death of King Henry I of England in 1135 without a legitimate male heir plunged the realm into a period of civil war known as the Anarchy. Although Matilda had been named Henry's successor and received oaths of loyalty from the barons, her cousin Stephen of Blois seized the throne with the support of key nobles and the church. This usurpation sparked nearly 2 decades of conflict, as both claimants vied for control of England. The Anarchy exposed the fragility of feudal governance, as barons exploited the breakdown of royal authority to assert their autonomy. Chroniclers describe the period as one of widespread lawlessness and suffering. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle famously lamented that Christ and his saints slept, highlighting the pervasive violence and despair of the time. Key events and turning points. The Anarchy was marked by shifting alliances, sieges, and dramatic episodes. In 1141, Matilda's forces captured King Stephen at the Battle of Lincoln, a victory that briefly tipped the scales in her favor. Despite this, Matilda struggled to gain widespread support. The failure of her coronation attempt in London underscored the challenges she faced as a female claimant in a patriarchal society. The Treaty of Wallingford in 1153 marked the end of the Civil War, recognizing Stephen as king but naming Matilda's son, Henry of Anjou, as his heir. This compromise not only secured the Plantagenet succession but also highlighted the political savvy of both parties in avoiding further devastation. Economic and social consequences. The Anarchy devastated the English economy. Agricultural production plummeted due to constant warfare, and heavy taxation exacerbated the suffering of the peasantry. Urban centers became battlegrounds, disrupting trade networks and undermining economic stability. Nevertheless, the lessons of the Anarchy informed Henry II's governance, particularly his focus on restoring royal authority and reforming administrative practices. The period's hardships underscored the importance of centralized control and paved the way for the Plantagenet dynasty's long-term success. Historiography, reassessing Matilda's leadership. Medieval perspectives. Contemporary accounts of Matilda's leadership often reflect the gender biases of the medieval period. Chroniclers such as William of Malmesbury acknowledged her legitimate claim to the throne but criticized her assertiveness, describing her as haughty and unable to win the loyalty of her subjects. These narratives often contrasted her perceived failures with the successes of male rulers, perpetuating a view of Matilda as an unsuitable leader. Modern feminist interpretations. Feminist historians have re-evaluated Matilda's role, emphasizing her political acumen and resilience. Scholars such as Marjorie Shibnall highlight the systemic barriers Matilda faced and argue that her inability to secure the throne stemmed more from societal constraints than personal shortcomings. Her leadership during the Anarchy demonstrated remarkable strategic brilliance, particularly in moments like her escape from Oxford Castle. Modern scholarship reframes Matilda not as a failed monarch but as a trailblazer who challenged the patriarchal norms of her time. This reinterpretation enriches our understanding of her role in Plantagenet history and underscores the complexity of medieval power dynamics. The wider context, Angevin politics and society. The role of barons and local governance. The Anarchy highlighted the importance of baronial cooperation in maintaining political stability. The Treaty of Wallingford exemplified the need for compromise between the monarchy and the nobility, a theme that would define Plantagenet governance. This balance of power laid the groundwork for the development of institutions like Parliament, which emerged as a forum for negotiation and conflict resolution. Cultural and intellectual foundations. The 12th century was a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing. Geoffrey of Anjou's court championed chivalric ideals and promoted the arts, creating a cultural foundation that influenced the Plantagenet kings. The Angevin Empire became a center for literary and architectural innovation, reflecting the dynasty's commitment to blending tradition with progress. Broader European context. The Plantagenet dynasty's rise cannot be understood in isolation. The broader currents of medieval European politics, including the investiture controversy and the Crusades, shaped the environment in which they emerged. These events underscored the interconnectedness of European powers and highlighted the Plantagenets' ability to navigate complex alliances and rivalries. Conclusion. The origins of the Plantagenet dynasty were forged in a crucible of ambition, conflict, and resilience. Geoffrey of Anjou's strategic vision laid the groundwork for the family's rise to power, blending diplomacy, cultural innovation, and military strength. The anarchy, despite its chaos, ultimately set the stage for the consolidation of Plantagenet rule under Henry II. Finally, the historiographical re-evaluation of Matilda's leadership highlights the enduring significance of her contributions, challenging traditional narratives and offering new insights into the complexities of medieval power dynamics. By examining the roots of the Plantagenets, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that shaped one of England's most influential dynasties. The challenges they overcame and the legacies they forged continue to resonate, providing a window into the political and cultural currents of medieval Europe. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. The succession crisis of England, the White Ship disaster, and its aftermath. The succession crisis triggered by the White Ship disaster of 1120 represents one of the most transformative periods in medieval English history. This era of tragedy, political upheaval, and protracted civil war reshaped the monarchy and altered the governance of the realm. By examining its origins, the roles of its key players, and its enduring legacy, we gain insights into the complexities of medieval kingship and the fragility of political stability. The White Ship disaster, a dynastic catastrophe. The White Ship disaster, which occurred on the night of November 25, 1120, was a calamity with far-reaching consequences. Chroniclers such as Orderic Vitalis and William of Malmesbury provide vivid accounts of the ship's tragic voyage. The vessel, carrying over 300 passengers, including members of the Anglo-Norman elite, struck a submerged rock off the coast of Barfleur, Normandy, and sank in the icy waters of the English Channel. Among the passengers was William Adelin, the sole legitimate son of King Henry I of England and Queen Matilda of Scotland. His death marked the collapse of Henry's carefully constructed dynastic plans. The importance of William Adelin's role. William Adelin had been groomed from birth to inherit his father's dual kingdom, which included England and Normandy. His father, Henry I, had devoted considerable effort to securing the realm and stabilizing relations with neighboring powers. William's engagement to Matilda of Anjou, the daughter of Count Fulk V of Anjou, was a critical element of this strategy. The marriage aimed to neutralize Angevin threats to Norman borders and solidify alliances in northern France. William was not only the focal point of Henry's dynastic aspirations, but also represented a unifying figure for the Anglo-Norman nobility. His upbringing at court included rigorous training in administration and martial prowess, ensuring that he would have been a capable ruler. Chroniclers note his charisma and promise, attributes that further deepened the loss felt by his contemporaries. His role as a unifier of the Anglo-Norman elite was vital in a realm still grappling with its Norman conquest identity. The White Ship disaster abruptly ended these plans. As the sole legitimate heir, William's death left a void in the line of succession, plunging the Anglo-Norman kingdom into uncertainty. The chronicles emphasize the immediate shock of the event. Orderic Vitalis notes that the drunkenness of the crew contributed to the disaster, while William of Malmesbury describes the profound grief of King Henry, who never smiled again, after the news of his son's death. Political ramifications of the disaster. The sinking of the White Ship also claimed the lives of numerous nobles, including members of prominent Anglo-Norman families. This loss of elite leadership created power vacuums that would exacerbate the instability of the subsequent years. Families that survived were left to navigate a fractured political landscape, further weakening the centralized authority that Henry had spent decades building. Moreover, the tragedy exposed the vulnerabilities inherent in dynastic politics. Succession planning, often reliant on a single male heir, was fraught with risks. The absence of contingency plans for such disasters underscored the fragile nature of medieval monarchies, where the death of an heir could precipitate crises that destabilized entire realms. Notably, the disaster also led to increased scrutiny of naval safety and the reliability of transportation infrastructure in the Anglo-Norman domain. The political fallout extended to international relations. The death of William Adelin disrupted alliances forged through his betrothal to Matilda of Anjou, straining Anglo-Norman relations with the House of Anjou. This rupture set the stage for decades of territorial and dynastic conflict, culminating in the Angevin Plantagenet ascendancy later in the century. The loss of William also reignited debates about the nature of kingship and succession within Norman and English traditions. Henry I faced mounting pressure to address these issues, as barons sought security amidst growing uncertainty. This unprecedented event highlighted the precariousness of Norman rule, a relatively recent establishment in England following the conquest of 1066. The struggle to establish a female heir, Matilda's challenge. With the death of William Adelin, Henry I faced a dire challenge, securing the succession. In an unprecedented move, he named his daughter, Matilda, as his heir. This decision reflected Henry's determination to preserve his dynasty but also revealed the limitations of medieval inheritance practices, which were steeped in patriarchal norms. Matilda's qualifications and early life. Matilda, born in 1102, was no ordinary woman of her time. As the wife of Holy Roman Emperor Henry V, she had gained invaluable political experience in one of Europe's most powerful courts. During her tenure as empress, Matilda learned the intricacies of governance, diplomacy, and military strategy. Following her husband's death in 1125, she returned to her father's court, where Henry I recognized her potential as a ruler. Chroniclers like John of Worcester describe her as intelligent and resolute, qualities that would define her later struggles. Matilda's return to England was accompanied by her elevation to a position of prominence within Henry's court. She was entrusted with managing key aspects of the royal administration, a role that further underscored her suitability for rule. Her experiences in the Holy Roman Empire also provided her with a broader perspective on the challenges of governance, making her one of the most politically astute figures of her era. She represented a bridge between Anglo-Norman and European traditions, which proved both an asset and a liability in her eventual claim to the throne. In 1127, Henry I compelled his barons to swear oaths of allegiance to Matilda as his successor. While this act was groundbreaking, it was not without its complications. The concept of a reigning queen was almost unheard of in 12th century Europe. Female rulers, when they did exercise power, typically did so as regents or consorts. The barons' reluctant oaths underscored the deep-seated resistance to the idea of a queen regnant. The difficulties Matilda faced were compounded by societal expectations and cultural biases. Her assertive demeanor, while necessary for leadership, was often interpreted negatively by her contemporaries. The chronicler William of Malmesbury noted that her haughty manner alienated some of her supporters, illustrating the double standards applied to women in power. Nonetheless, her determination to assert her claim in the face of overwhelming opposition would define her legacy. The controversial marriage to Geoffrey of Anjou. To bolster Matilda's position, Henry arranged her marriage to Geoffrey Plantagenet, Count of Anjou. This union, while strategically advantageous, alienated many of Henry's barons. Geoffrey's youth and relatively low status within the Norman hierarchy made him a contentious figure. The marriage also symbolized a shift in alliances that threatened to destabilize existing power dynamics. Norman barons feared that Geoffrey's ambitions might compromise their own interests. The marriage also set the stage for the eventual rise of the Angevin dynasty, but in the short term, it deepened divisions within the Anglo-Norman nobility. Geoffrey's campaigns in Normandy, which began during Henry's lifetime, exacerbated tensions, as they were perceived as aggressive attempts to consolidate Angevin control over Norman territories. These military incursions alienated not only Norman barons but also several French magnates, complicating the political landscape further. Geoffrey's insistence on his own claims to Normandy during Matilda's campaign for England's throne created additional friction. His independent ambitions often conflicted with Matilda's efforts, reflecting the complexities of their political partnership and the challenges of uniting their respective goals. Matilda's political standing was further undermined by Geoffrey's uneasy relationship with Henry's barons, many of whom viewed him as an outsider. His military campaigns in Normandy alienated potential allies, weakening Matilda's ability to consolidate power in England. This strained relationship between the barons and Matilda's supporters further underscored the political fragility of her position. The usurpation of Stephen of Blois. When Henry I died in December 1135, the succession crisis reached a critical juncture. Matilda, in Normandy at the time, was unable to act swiftly. Stephen of Blois, Henry's nephew and a grandson of William the Conqueror, seized the opportunity to claim the throne. Stephen's swift actions, including securing his coronation at Westminster Abbey, demonstrated his political acumen and the influence of his brother, Henry of Winchester, who was a key player in the church. The legitimacy debate. Stephen's claim to the throne rested on his familial connection to William the Conqueror and the support of influential nobles. However, his coronation violated the oaths of fealty sworn to Matilda. This breach of feudal loyalty sparked controversy and laid the groundwork for the ensuing conflict. The chroniclers offer contrasting views of Stephen's actions. William of Malmesbury criticizes Stephen for his opportunism, while the jester Stephanie, a chronicle sympathetic to his cause, portrays him as a stabilizing force during a time of uncertainty. The divided historiography reflects the polarized nature of Stephen's reign. Early challenges of Stephen's reign. Initially, Stephen's reign appeared promising. His promises to restore stability and uphold the rights of the barons won him support. However, his inability to enforce royal authority soon undermined his position. Chroniclers describe his generosity and charm but also criticize his lack of decisiveness, which allowed local lords to assert their autonomy. Stephen's reign was further complicated by external threats. The Scottish invasion of northern England in 1138 and Geoffrey of Anjou's campaigns in Normandy stretched his resources thin, forcing him to rely heavily on his barons. This reliance weakened the central authority of the crown and set the stage for the prolonged civil war that followed. Additionally, Stephen's imprisonment of the powerful Earl of Gloucester, a key ally of Matilda, further inflamed tensions, leading to more open conflict. The fragmentation of power became a defining characteristic of Stephen's reign. The proliferation of private armies and unauthorized castles eroded centralized authority, leaving much of the kingdom in the hands of ambitious local magnates. This decentralization further deepened the political instability of the period. The anarchy, civil war and chaos. The period from 1138 to 1153, known as the Anarchy, was a time of intense civil war between Stephen and Matilda. This conflict fractured the kingdom, with shifting alliances and widespread lawlessness. The chronicler Henry of Huntingdon vividly captures the despair of the period, writing that the land was full of castles, and the castles were filled with devils. Matilda's campaigns and setbacks. Matilda's efforts to claim the throne included several dramatic episodes. Her capture of Stephen at the Battle of Lincoln in 1141 marked a high point in her campaign. The dramatic events that followed, including her occupation of London and her near coronation, underscore her tenacity. However, her failure to secure lasting support among the barons and the populace hindered her efforts. One of the most striking episodes of the anarchy was Matilda's escape from Oxford Castle in 1142. Surrounded by Stephen's forces, Matilda famously fled under cover of night, crossing the frozen River Thames in a white cloak to avoid detection. This episode, immortalized in medieval chronicles, highlights both her resourcefulness and the precariousness of her position. The fragmentation of power. Stephen, despite regaining the throne after his release, faced ongoing challenges. The lack of centralized authority allowed regional magnates to consolidate power, often at the expense of the common people. The proliferation of unauthorized castles and private armies contributed to widespread suffering. The anarchy also revealed the limitations of feudal governance. Local lords prioritized their interests over the stability of the realm, and the crown's inability to enforce order led to what contemporaries described as a lawless period. The effects of this decentralization were felt most acutely by the peasantry, who bore the brunt of the economic and social disruptions caused by the conflict. The involvement of external forces, such as David I of Scotland and alliances with Welsh princes, further complicated the political landscape. The anarchy became not only a civil war but also a broader regional conflict that drew in neighboring territories. The prolonged nature of the conflict further destabilized trade and agriculture, leading to widespread famine in certain regions. Chroniclers report entire villages abandoned as peasants fled the violence or succumbed to starvation. The Treaty of Winchester and the Angevin succession. The anarchy reached its resolution in 1153 with the Treaty of Winchester. This agreement, brokered with the mediation of the Church, established Matilda's son, Henry of Anjou, as Stephen's heir. The treaty represented a pragmatic solution to a conflict that had exhausted both sides. The rise of Henry II. When Stephen died in 1154, Henry ascended the throne as Henry II, marking the beginning of the Angevin dynasty. Henry's reign brought stability to England and laid the groundwork for a more centralized monarchy. His legal and administrative reforms, including the development of common law, had a lasting impact on English governance. Henry's accession also symbolized the resolution of the Norman-Angevin conflict. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine further expanded his territorial holdings, creating an empire that stretched from Scotland to the Pyrenees. This consolidation of power marked the end of the fragmentation that had characterized Stephen's reign. Additionally, Henry's youthful energy and administrative prowess allowed him to reassert royal authority over unruly barons. Henry's reign also marked a shift in the relationship between the monarchy and the Church. His conflicts with Thomas Becket over ecclesiastical authority highlighted the enduring tensions between secular and spiritual power, a theme that would resonate throughout the medieval period. Legacy and historical significance. The events of the 12th century reveal the fragility of medieval monarchies and the challenges of maintaining legitimacy. The White Ship disaster serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in dynastic politics. The anarchy, with its devastating effects on the kingdom, underscores the importance of strong leadership and effective governance. Matilda's struggle highlighted the limitations placed on women in medieval society and the structural barriers to female rule. While she did not achieve the crown, her efforts set a precedent for future queens, such as Mary I and Elizabeth I, who would reign in their own right centuries later. Matilda's role as the mother of the Angevin dynasty secured her place in history as a foundational figure in the rise of one of Europe's most influential royal houses. The Treaty of Winchester stands as a testament to the power of compromise in resolving entrenched conflicts. By prioritizing the kingdom's stability over personal ambition, both Matilda and Stephen ensured a smoother transition of power to Henry II. This resolution marked a turning point in English history, ushering in an era of relative peace and administrative reform under Angevin rule. The Angevin dynasty, beginning with Henry II, transformed England's legal and political systems. The development of common law, the establishment of itinerant justices, and the strengthening of royal finances laid the groundwork for the centralized state that would emerge in the later Middle Ages. These reforms can be traced back to the lessons learned during the turbulent years of the anarchy. Moreover, the events of this period underscored the interconnectedness of European politics. The alliances, rivalries, and territorial disputes that played out during the succession crisis had repercussions across France, Scotland, and the Holy Roman Empire. The integration of England into this broader European framework during the Angevin period elevated its significance on the continental stage. The succession crisis of the 12th century also left a lasting cultural impact. The chronicles of this period, written by figures such as Henry of Huntingdon and William of Malmesbury, offer some of the richest accounts of medieval political life, shedding light on the complexities of feudal rule, dynastic ambition, and the human cost of conflict. These works remain invaluable resources for understanding the challenges of medieval governance and the evolution of the English state. Conclusion. The succession crisis of the 12th century was a transformative period that reshaped England's political and social landscape. Through a combination of tragedy, ambition, and resilience, the events surrounding the White Ship disaster and the anarchy offer enduring lessons about the complexities of power and the human dimensions of history. By examining this period, we gain a deeper appreciation for the fragile balance between stability and chaos in medieval governance, as well as the enduring impact of individual agency in shaping the course of history. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. Geoffrey of Anjou, architect of the Plantagenet legacy. Geoffrey of Anjou, 1113–1151, also known as Geoffrey Plantagenet, was a pivotal figure in the formation of the Plantagenet dynasty, whose influence would shape the political landscape of medieval Europe. As the Count of Anjou, Maine, and Touraine, Geoffrey combined military acumen, political ingenuity, and administrative reform to establish a legacy that resonated across centuries. His marriage to Empress Matilda and his role in the power struggles of his time were instrumental in forging the foundations of the Angevin Empire and the eventual dominance of the Plantagenet dynasty. Early life, foundations of leadership. Geoffrey was born on August 24, 1113, in Anjou, France, to Fulk V and Ermengarde of Maine. Fulk V, known as Fulk the Young, was an ambitious and capable ruler who would later ascend to the throne of Jerusalem as king. Geoffrey's mother, Ermengarde, brought significant ties to the nobility of Maine, further solidifying the family's regional power. Geoffrey's early life was deeply influenced by his father's political and military aspirations, which provided him with a model of leadership that combined pragmatism, piety, and ambition. Growing up in the courts of Anjou, Geoffrey received an education befitting a nobleman. He was trained in the arts of war, diplomacy, and governance. Known for his striking appearance and charisma, Geoffrey earned the nickname Plantagenet due to his habit of wearing a sprig of broom, gennet in French, on his cap. This symbol of his lineage would later lend its name to one of the most powerful dynasties in European history. In 1129, when Fulk departed for Jerusalem to assume kingship, Geoffrey inherited the title of Count of Anjou. This transition marked the beginning of his political and military career. Anjou, situated between the powerful regions of Normandy and Aquitaine, was a strategically vital domain. Its position made Geoffrey a key player in the volatile politics of 12th-century France, a role he embraced with energy and determination. Marriage to Empress Matilda, a strategic alliance. Geoffrey's marriage to Empress Matilda in 1128 was a turning point not only in his life but also in the political landscape of Western Europe. Matilda, the daughter of King Henry I of England, had been widowed after the death of her first husband, Holy Roman Emperor Henry V. Her status as empress gave her considerable prestige, but it was her position as Henry I's sole legitimate heir that made her a critical figure in the dynastic struggles of the time. The union was orchestrated by Henry I as a means of securing an alliance between Anjou and Normandy. This marriage had profound implications. Normandy, a wealthy and strategically located duchy, was a linchpin in the Anglo-Norman realm. By tying Matilda's claim to the English throne with Geoffrey's control over Anjou, Henry I sought to create a power bloc capable of resisting the ambitions of rival factions. The marriage, however, was not without challenges. Geoffrey and Matilda, both strong-willed individuals, often clashed. Their early years together were marked by estrangement and disputes, yet their political objectives eventually aligned. Despite these difficulties, the marriage produced three sons, Henry, Geoffrey, and William. Henry, the eldest, would later ascend to the English throne as Henry II, becoming the first Plantagenet king. This union thus laid the foundation for a dynasty that would dominate England and much of France for over 3 centuries. Consolidation of Normandy, a campaign of control. While Matilda focused on her struggle for the English crown, Geoffrey turned his attention to consolidating control over Normandy. The duchy, a vital part of the Anglo-Norman inheritance, had fallen into disarray following the death of Henry I in 1135. King Stephen of England, who had usurped Matilda's claim, struggled to maintain authority over Normandy, leaving a power vacuum that Geoffrey sought to exploit. Between 1136 and 1144, Geoffrey launched a series of campaigns to secure the duchy. His military strategy was methodical, relying on siege warfare and the systematic subjugation of rebellious barons. Geoffrey's efforts culminated in the capture of Rouen in 1144, a decisive victory that secured his position as Duke of Normandy. This achievement was not merely a territorial conquest but a significant step in the formation of the Angevin Empire, as it provided a secure base of power for his family's ambitions. Geoffrey's consolidation of Normandy also reinforced his reputation as a capable and determined leader. His ability to navigate the complex political dynamics of the region, coupled with his military successes, set the stage for his son Henry's eventual rise to power. By securing Normandy, Geoffrey ensured that his family's influence would extend far beyond the borders of Anjou. Administrative reforms, the architect of stability. Geoffrey's governance of Anjou, Maine, and Normandy was marked by a series of administrative innovations that reflected his foresight as a ruler. Recognizing the importance of efficient governance, he implemented reforms to streamline tax collection and local administration. These measures not only improved the financial stability of his domains but also strengthened his control over a fractious nobility. One of Geoffrey's key innovations was the emphasis on written records. By formalizing administrative processes and maintaining detailed accounts, he laid the groundwork for a more professionalized system of governance. This approach would later influence his son Henry II, who carried these principles into his administration of England. Geoffrey's focus on efficient governance ensured that his territories were well managed, providing a stable foundation for the expansion of Angevin power. Geoffrey's administrative reforms also had a cultural impact. By fostering a sense of order and stability, he encouraged economic growth and cultural exchange within his domains. His efforts to promote literacy and record-keeping reflected a broader trend in 12th-century Europe, where rulers increasingly recognized the value of written documentation in consolidating authority. Military mastery, building power through castles. Geoffrey was not only a skilled administrator but also a formidable military strategist. He understood the importance of fortifications in maintaining control over his territories. Castles served as both defensive strongholds and symbols of power, projecting authority to allies and rivals alike. During his reign, Geoffrey oversaw the construction and expansion of key castles, including Château de Chinon and Château d'Angers. These fortifications were strategically located to protect vital trade routes and borders. They were also designed to withstand prolonged sieges, reflecting Geoffrey's understanding of medieval warfare. The castles built and fortified under Geoffrey's direction not only secured his domains but also demonstrated his commitment to long-term stability. These structures became centers of administration and governance, integrating military and political functions. Geoffrey's emphasis on castle building would influence his descendants, who continued to use architecture as a means of consolidating power. Legacy: the Plantagenet Foundation. Geoffrey's death in 1151 at the age of 38 marked the end of a life characterized by ambition and achievement. He passed away unexpectedly after falling ill during a military campaign. Despite his relatively short life, Geoffrey's legacy endured through his descendants, who carried forward his vision of a unified Anglo-French empire. His son Henry II not only became King of England but also laid the foundation for the Angevin Empire, which at its height spanned vast territories in France and England. The Plantagenet dynasty, which derived its name from Geoffrey's sobriquet, ruled England for over 3 centuries, overseeing significant developments in governance, law, and culture. Geoffrey's contributions to the rise of the Plantagenets cannot be overstated. His strategic marriage, military conquests, and administrative reforms established a framework for success that his descendants built upon. Geoffrey's ability to balance ambition with pragmatism made him a model of medieval kingship, and his legacy continues to be celebrated as a foundational chapter in European history. Conclusion: Geoffrey of Anjou was a man of remarkable vision and capability. His ability to navigate the complex political landscape of 12th-century Europe, coupled with his reforms and military achievements, ensured the success of the Plantagenet dynasty. From his strategic marriage to Empress Matilda to his consolidation of Normandy and his administrative innovations, Geoffrey's life and accomplishments remain a testament to the power of ambition, strategy, and innovation. As the architect of a legacy that shaped the course of English and French history, Geoffrey's influence resonates to this day, a reminder of the enduring impact of leadership and vision. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. year 1135, Stephen crowned King of England. The year 1135 marked a pivotal moment in English history with the controversial coronation of Stephen of Blois as King of England. Stephen's ascent to the throne not only defied the established succession plan, but also plunged the country into a period of civil war and unrest known as the Anarchy. The circumstances of his coronation and its consequences reveal much about the fragile nature of royal authority in medieval England and the complexities of feudal loyalty. Stephen was the grandson of William the Conqueror and the nephew of King Henry I. Despite his royal lineage, Stephen was not the first in line for the throne. Before his death, King Henry I had named his daughter, Matilda, as his heir. This decision was unprecedented, as England had never been ruled by a woman, and it faced significant opposition from the barons, who were reluctant to accept a female monarch. Nonetheless, Henry I worked diligently to secure oaths of loyalty to Matilda from his court, including from Stephen himself. The unexpected death of Henry I in December 1135 created a power vacuum that Stephen was quick to exploit. Although Matilda had been designated as heir, she was in Normandy at the time, far removed from the political epicenter of England. Stephen, seizing the opportunity, raced to London and garnered the support of key figures, including the influential Bishop of Winchester, his own brother. By strategically gaining the backing of the church and the barons, Stephen ensured his swift coronation at Westminster Abbey on December 22, 1135. Stephen's claim to the throne rested on two main arguments. First, he argued that the majority of England's barons preferred a male ruler, which reflected the patriarchal norms of the time. Second, he relied on the backing of the church, which questioned Matilda's suitability as a ruler due to her gender and her marriage to Geoffrey of Anjou, a member of a rival dynasty. By securing the church's endorsement, Stephen legitimized his rule in the eyes of many. However, this legitimacy was far from universal. The coronation of Stephen marked the beginning of a tumultuous reign characterized by instability and conflict. Matilda, refusing to accept Stephen's usurpation, mounted a challenge to his authority. Her supporters, including her half-brother Robert of Gloucester and other powerful nobles, contested Stephen's rule, leading to a prolonged civil war. Known as the Anarchy, this period was defined by shifting alliances, widespread violence, and the breakdown of centralized authority. England descended into chaos, with local lords asserting their power and the monarchy's influence waning. Despite his initial popularity, Stephen struggled to maintain control over a fragmented and war-torn kingdom. His inability to decisively defeat Matilda's forces weakened his reign, and his concessions to the barons further eroded royal authority. The conflict eventually ended in 1153 with the Treaty of Winchester, which recognized Matilda's son, Henry, as Stephen's heir. Stephen's coronation in 1135 was both a dramatic and consequential event in English history. It highlighted the fragility of royal succession, the power of the church, and the enduring tensions within the feudal system. While Stephen's reign is often overshadowed by the conflict that ensued, it remains a stark reminder of the challenges of medieval kingship and the enduring impact of political ambition on a nation's fate. Let's examine the Anarchy and its aftermath in greater detail. The Anarchy, 1135 to 1153, a period of chaos and transition. Political chaos and rivalry. The death of King Henry I of England in 1135 without a legitimate male heir plunged the realm into a period of civil war known as the Anarchy. Although Matilda had been named Henry's successor and received oaths of loyalty from the barons, her cousin Stephen of Blois seized the throne with the support of key nobles and the church. This usurpation sparked nearly 2 decades of conflict, as both claimants vied for control of England. The Anarchy exposed the fragility of feudal governance, as barons exploited the breakdown of royal authority to assert their autonomy. Chroniclers describe the period as one of widespread lawlessness and suffering. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle famously lamented that Christ and his saints slept, highlighting the pervasive violence and despair of the time. Key events and turning points. The anarchy was marked by shifting alliances, sieges, and dramatic episodes. In 1141, Matilda's forces captured King Stephen at the Battle of Lincoln, a victory that briefly tipped the scales in her favor. Despite this, Matilda struggled to gain widespread support. The failure of her coronation attempt in London underscored the challenges she faced as a female claimant in a patriarchal society. The Treaty of Wallingford in 1153 marked the end of the Civil War, recognizing Stephen as king but naming Matilda's son, Henry of Anjou, as his heir. This compromise not only secured the Plantagenet succession but also highlighted the political savvy of both parties in avoiding further devastation. Economic and social consequences. The anarchy devastated the English economy. Agricultural production plummeted due to constant warfare, and heavy taxation exacerbated the suffering of the peasantry. Urban centers became battlegrounds, disrupting trade networks and undermining economic stability. Nevertheless, the lessons of the anarchy informed Henry II's governance, particularly his focus on restoring royal authority and reforming administrative practices. The period's hardships underscored the importance of centralized control and paved the way for the Plantagenet dynasty's long-term success. Historiography, reassessing Matilda's leadership. Medieval perspectives. Contemporary accounts of Matilda's leadership often reflect the gender biases of the medieval period. Chroniclers such as William of Malmesbury acknowledged her legitimate claim to the throne but criticized her assertiveness, describing her as haughty and unable to win the loyalty of her subjects. These narratives often contrasted her perceived failures with the successes of male rulers, perpetuating a view of Matilda as an unsuitable leader. Modern feminist interpretations. Feminist historians have re-evaluated Matilda's role, emphasizing her political acumen and resilience. Scholars such as Marjorie Shibnall highlight the systemic barriers Matilda faced and argue that her inability to secure the throne stemmed more from societal constraints than personal shortcomings. Her leadership during the anarchy demonstrated remarkable strategic brilliance, particularly in moments like her escape from Oxford Castle. Modern scholarship reframes Matilda not as a failed monarch but as a trailblazer who challenged the patriarchal norms of her time. This reinterpretation enriches our understanding of her role in Plantagenet history and underscores the complexity of medieval power dynamics. The wider context, Angevin politics and society. The role of barons and local governance. The anarchy highlighted the importance of baronial cooperation in maintaining political stability. The Treaty of Wallingford exemplified the need for compromise between the monarchy and the nobility, a theme that would define Plantagenet governance. This balance of power laid the groundwork for the development of institutions like Parliament, which emerged as a forum for negotiation and conflict resolution. Cultural and intellectual foundations. The 12th century was a period of cultural and intellectual flourishing. Geoffrey of Anjou's court championed chivalric ideals and promoted the arts, creating a cultural foundation that influenced the Plantagenet kings. The Angevin Empire became a center for literary and architectural innovation, reflecting the dynasty's commitment to blending tradition with progress. Broader European context. The Plantagenet dynasty's rise cannot be understood in isolation. The broader currents of medieval European politics, including the investiture controversy and the Crusades, shaped the environment in which they emerged. These events underscored the interconnectedness of European powers and highlighted the Plantagenet's ability to navigate complex alliances and rivalries. Conclusion. The origins of the Plantagenet dynasty were forged in a crucible of ambition, conflict, and resilience. Geoffrey of Anjou's strategic vision laid the groundwork for the family's rise to power, blending diplomacy, cultural innovation, and military strength. The anarchy, despite its chaos, ultimately set the stage for the consolidation of Plantagenet rule under Henry II. Finally, the historiographical re-evaluation of Matilda's leadership highlights the enduring significance of her contributions, challenging traditional narratives and offering new insights into the complexities of medieval power dynamics. By examining the roots of the Plantagenets, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that shaped one of England's most influential dynasties. The challenges they overcame and the legacies they forged continue to resonate, providing a window into the political and cultural currents of medieval Europe. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. Henry II of England, 1133 to 1189, the first Plantagenet king, was a transformative figure in medieval Europe. In 1147, at just 14, Henry embarked on his first independent military campaign to assert his family's claim to the English throne. Commanding a modest force of mercenaries, he crossed the Channel to challenge King Stephen. Although the campaign ultimately faltered due to inadequate resources and support, it showcased Henry's emerging strategic acumen and personal courage. This audacious endeavor was a testament to Henry's determination and precocious sense of responsibility. The campaign, despite its logistical challenges, underscored his willingness to take calculated risks in pursuit of his objectives. It also highlighted the importance of resource management and coalition building, lessons that would prove invaluable in his later military and political efforts. Henry's leadership during this period earned him the respect of his followers and cemented his reputation as a rising power in the ongoing conflict. Moreover, the 1147 campaign offered Henry an opportunity to test his mettle in the complex arena of medieval warfare. From coordinating the movement of his forces to negotiating with potential allies, Henry demonstrated an aptitude for strategic thinking that belied his youth. While the campaign's immediate objectives were not realized, the experience reinforced Henry's resolve to continue his pursuit of the throne, laying the groundwork for his eventual success. 1149 – Knighthood and Diplomatic Alliances. In 1149, a pivotal moment in Henry's early career unfolded when he was knighted by King David I of Scotland in Carlisle. This act was far more than a ceremonial milestone. It was a calculated assertion of legitimacy and a strategic alliance between the Angevin and Scottish crowns. By securing David's support, Henry bolstered his position against Stephen and reinforced his claim to the English throne. The knighthood also carried broader implications for Henry's development as a leader. It conferred upon him the recognition necessary to command greater respect among the Anglo-Norman barons. Additionally, this episode highlighted the significance of medieval political networks, where personal relationships and symbolic gestures played critical roles in cementing authority and alliances. For Henry, the ceremony symbolized his transition from a precocious youth to a leader ready to engage in the high-stakes world of medieval politics. Appearance and personality. Contemporary descriptions. Contemporaries such as Gerald of Wales and Walter Map provide vivid insights into Henry's physical presence and temperament. Gerald described him as of medium height, with a robust and muscular build, exuding vitality and strength. His unruly red hair, inherited from his Norman lineage, was emblematic of his restless and energetic disposition. Walter Map remarked on his piercing grey eyes, which conveyed both intelligence and intensity, traits that often left a lasting impression on those who encountered him. Henry's demeanor was equally distinctive. Known for his boundless energy, he was often described as physically incapable of remaining still. This relentless activity was a double-edged sword. While it fueled his tireless work ethic, it also contributed to impulsive decisions. His sharp wit and volatile temper, frequently remarked upon by his contemporaries, added further complexity to his character. Illustrative anecdotes. Henry's impetuous temper was infamous. One well-known anecdote recounts how, in a moment of rage, he threw himself onto the floor, gnashing his teeth and tearing at the rushes. Such episodes reveal the intensity of his emotions and his ongoing struggle to temper them. Yet, these outbursts were counterbalanced by moments of calculated restraint, evidencing his capacity for strategic thinking when the stakes were highest. Equally notable was Henry's indefatigable work ethic. He personally oversaw legal cases, often presiding over judgments for hours on end. His itinerant court, which traversed his territories, enabled him to maintain direct oversight of governance. This hands-on approach earned him a reputation for diligence and justice, even as it placed considerable strain on his subordinates, who struggled to match his relentless pace. Interpersonal dynamics. Henry's personality significantly shaped his relationships with key figures in his life. His charisma and intellect earned him admiration, yet his fiery temper and relentless demands frequently caused friction. Within his family, his authoritarian tendencies led to deep-seated conflicts with his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and his sons, who resented his efforts to control their futures. His relationship with the church was equally fraught. While his administrative reforms strengthened royal authority, they often brought him into conflict with ecclesiastical leaders, most notably Thomas Becket. Henry's impatience and volatility exacerbated these tensions, culminating in the notorious murder of Becket in 1170. With his barons, Henry balanced respect with suspicion. While his ability to inspire loyalty was undeniable, his centralizing policies alienated certain factions. Nevertheless, his strategic acumen and magnetic leadership enabled him to maintain a precarious equilibrium, consolidating power without igniting widespread rebellion. Public persona versus private struggles. In public, Henry exuded confidence and decisiveness, captivating audiences with his eloquent and commanding presence. His ability to connect with individuals across the social spectrum was a cornerstone of his leadership. However, his public composure often masked private turmoil. His temperamental nature and unrelenting drive strained relationships within his inner circle and contributed to the familial and political discord that characterized his later years. By 1149, Henry had already demonstrated many of the attributes that would define his reign: strategic brilliance, an unwavering commitment to justice, and an unyielding determination to assert his authority. These early experiences not only prepared him to claim the English crown but also forged the foundation of one of medieval Europe's most consequential reigns. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. Henry II, architect of Angevin, England, the early years. Henry II of England, 1133 to 1189, the first Plantagenet king, was a transformative figure in medieval Europe, whose legacy is deeply rooted in his legal reforms, territorial ambitions, and the enduring complexities of his personal life. To fully understand the man who would shape the Angevin Empire, it is essential to explore his formative years and the distinct qualities of his physical appearance and personality. Henry's early life, set against the backdrop of political turmoil, and his striking character traits, captured vividly by contemporaries, offer profound insights into his rise as a formidable leader and the architect of one of the most expansive domains of the medieval period. Henry II's early years, 1133 to 1149, foundations of a dynasty. Family background: Geoffrey Plantagenet's ambitions and Matilda's resolve. Henry II was born on March 5, 1133, in Le Mans, the product of a union marked by strategic foresight and dynastic ambition. His father, Geoffrey Plantagenet, Count of Anjou, was a resolute leader whose territorial ambitions extended beyond the confines of Anjou, Maine, and Touraine. Geoffrey's calculated marriage to Matilda, daughter of King Henry I of England, sought to unify their claims and expand Plantagenet influence across Western Europe. Despite their often strained relationship, Geoffrey was significantly younger than Matilda. Their shared determination provided the foundation for Henry's eventual ascension. Matilda, known as the Empress due to her earlier marriage to Emperor Henry V of the Holy Roman Empire, was a paragon of resolve. Following her father's death in 1135, her claim to the English throne was contested by her cousin Stephen of Blois, igniting a protracted civil war known as the Anarchy. Matilda's ceaseless efforts to assert her rights were not merely personal but underscored her commitment to securing a stable and enduring dynasty for her progeny. Consequently, Henry's formative years were shaped by the volatile interplay of his parents' ambitions, instilling in him an acute understanding of power dynamics, familial legacy, and the necessity of unwavering leadership in the pursuit of sovereignty. The union between Geoffrey and Matilda was emblematic of the broader geopolitical tensions of 12th century Europe. Geoffrey's ambitions were grounded in consolidating and expanding Angevin influence, which included strategic alliances through marriage and calculated campaigns against regional rivals. Matilda, meanwhile, represented the convergence of imperial and Norman claims, bringing with her a legacy of governance from her time as Empress of the Holy Roman Empire. Their respective ambitions often clashed within their marriage, but their shared vision for their son's future reinforced a singular focus on establishing a dynasty capable of ruling a fragmented England. The Anarchy: Lessons in Crisis and Leadership. The Anarchy, 1135 to 1154, was a period of prolonged civil war and fractured governance that profoundly influenced Henry's development. Following King Stephen's seizure of the throne, England descended into chaos, with allegiances divided between Stephen and Matilda. The instability, characterized by sieges, battles, shifting alliances, and widespread lawlessness, left an indelible mark on the young Henry. Henry's exposure to the conflict began at an early age, accompanying his mother during her campaigns to reclaim her inheritance. These experiences were formative, offering him an intimate understanding of the intricate challenges of medieval warfare, including the logistics of moving armies, the importance of fortifications, and the psychological dimensions of siege warfare. One of the most significant episodes was the Siege of Oxford in 1142, during which Matilda famously escaped under the cover of night, traversing the frozen Thames. Such moments not only highlighted Matilda's ingenuity but also underscored the high stakes of leadership in times of crisis. These lessons would shape Henry's own approach to military and political strategy, particularly his focus on adaptability and decisive action. The pervasive disorder of the Anarchy illuminated the perils of weak centralized authority. Stephen's inability to impose order demonstrated the inherent vulnerabilities of a fragmented realm, a reality that deeply informed Henry's later emphasis on administrative reform and legal standardization. The fluidity of alliances during this period also provided Henry with a pragmatic education in political negotiation. He observed firsthand the importance of balancing coercion and conciliation, lessons that he would later employ to great effect in unifying his realm and asserting control over a fractious nobility. Education, shaping a statesman. Henry's education was comprehensive and meticulously designed to prepare him for the multifaceted demands of kingship. Recognizing the importance of intellectual and practical training, his parents ensured that he was instructed by some of the most distinguished scholars of the period. Henry's curriculum included the study of classical texts by Cicero, Aristotle, and Seneca, providing him with a foundation in rhetoric, ethics, and governance. These writings shaped his intellectual approach to rulership, particularly his commitment to justice and the rule of law. A key component of Henry's education was his exposure to Roman legal principles, which informed his later innovations in English common law. The emphasis on codified systems of justice resonated deeply with Henry, inspiring his efforts to create a more standardized and equitable legal framework for his subjects. His intellectual pursuits also extended to ecclesiastical writings, reflecting his understanding of the intricate relationship between secular and religious authority. In addition to academic training, Henry's education emphasized military strategy and physical endurance. He was trained in the intricacies of fortifications, siege warfare, and battlefield tactics, all essential skills for a medieval ruler. Contemporary accounts frequently highlight Henry's extraordinary stamina and energy, traits cultivated during this rigorous upbringing and critical to his later effectiveness as both a military commander and an itinerant administrator. The physical demands of his education complemented his intellectual development, creating a leader capable of navigating the complexities of medieval governance with remarkable agility. Equally significant were Henry's lessons in diplomacy and interpersonal negotiation. His ability to articulate a vision and rally support was evident even in his youth, earning him the admiration of his followers and the respect of his adversaries. This synthesis of intellectual depth, practical training, and interpersonal acumen prepared Henry to navigate the multifaceted challenges of medieval rulership with unparalleled effectiveness. Early campaigns, the England invasion of 1147. In 1147, at just 14, Henry embarked on his first independent military campaign to assert his family's claim to the English throne. Commanding a modest force of mercenaries, he crossed the Channel to challenge King Stephen. Although the campaign ultimately faltered due to inadequate resources and support, it showcased Henry's emerging strategic acumen and personal courage. This audacious endeavor was a testament to Henry's determination and precocious sense of responsibility. The campaign, despite its logistical challenges, underscored his willingness to take calculated risks in pursuit of his objectives. It also highlighted the importance of resource management and coalition building, lessons that would prove invaluable in his later military and political efforts. Henry's leadership during this period earned him the respect of his followers and cemented his reputation as a rising power in the ongoing conflict. Moreover, the 1147 campaign offered Henry an opportunity to test his mettle in the complex arena of medieval warfare. From coordinating the movement of his forces to negotiating with potential allies, Henry demonstrated an aptitude for strategic thinking that belied his youth. While the campaign's immediate objectives were not realized, the experience reinforced Henry's resolve to continue his pursuit of the throne, laying the groundwork for his eventual success. 1149, Knighthood and Diplomatic Alliances. In 1149, a pivotal moment in Henry's early career unfolded when he was knighted by King David I of Scotland in Carlisle. This act was far more than a ceremonial milestone. It was a calculated assertion of legitimacy and a strategic alliance between the Angevin and Scottish crowns. By securing David's support, Henry bolstered his position against Stephen and reinforced his claim to the English throne. The knighthood also carried broader implications for Henry's development as a leader. it conferred upon him the recognition necessary to command greater respect among the Anglo-Norman barons. Additionally, this episode highlighted the significance of medieval political networks, where personal relationships and symbolic gestures played critical roles in cementing authority and alliances. For Henry, the ceremony symbolized his transition from a precocious youth to a leader ready to engage in the high-stakes world of medieval politics. Appearance and personality. Contemporary descriptions. Contemporaries such as Gerald of Wales and Walter Map provide vivid insights into Henry's physical presence and temperament. Gerald described him as of medium height, with a robust and muscular build, exuding vitality and strength. His unruly red hair, inherited from his Norman lineage, was emblematic of his restless and energetic disposition. Walter Map remarked on his piercing grey eyes, which conveyed both intelligence and intensity, traits that often left a lasting impression on those who encountered him. Henry's demeanor was equally distinctive. Known for his boundless energy, he was often described as physically incapable of remaining still. This relentless activity was a double-edged sword. While it fueled his tireless work ethic, it also contributed to impulsive decisions. His sharp wit and volatile temper, frequently remarked upon by his contemporaries, added further complexity to his character. Illustrative anecdotes. Henry's impetuous temper was infamous. One well-known anecdote recounts how, in a moment of rage, he threw himself onto the floor, gnashing his teeth and tearing at the rushes. Such episodes reveal the intensity of his emotions and his ongoing struggle to temper them. Yet, these outbursts were counterbalanced by moments of calculated restraint, evidencing his capacity for strategic thinking when the stakes were highest. Equally notable was Henry's indefatigable work ethic. He personally oversaw legal cases, often presiding over judgments for hours on end. His itinerant court, which traversed his territories, enabled him to maintain direct oversight of governance. This hands-on approach earned him a reputation for diligence and justice, even as it placed considerable strain on his subordinates, who struggled to match his relentless pace. Interpersonal dynamics. Henry's personality significantly shaped his relationships with key figures in his life. His charisma and intellect earned him admiration, yet his fiery temper and relentless demands frequently caused friction. Within his family, his authoritarian tendencies led to deep-seated conflicts with his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and his sons, who resented his efforts to control their futures. His relationship with the church was equally fraught. While his administrative reforms strengthened royal authority, they often brought him into conflict with ecclesiastical leaders, most notably Thomas Becket. Henry's impatience and volatility exacerbated these tensions, culminating in the notorious murder of Becket in 1170. With his barons, Henry balanced respect with suspicion. While his ability to inspire loyalty was undeniable, his centralizing policies alienated certain factions. Nevertheless, his strategic acumen and magnetic leadership enabled him to maintain a precarious equilibrium, consolidating power without igniting widespread rebellion. Public persona versus private struggles. In public, Henry exuded confidence and decisiveness, captivating audiences with his eloquent and commanding presence. His ability to connect with individuals across the social spectrum was a cornerstone of his leadership. However, his public composure often masked private turmoil. His temperamental nature and unrelenting drive strained relationships within his inner circle and contributed to the familial and political discord that characterized his later years. By 1149, Henry had already demonstrated many of the attributes that would define his reign: strategic brilliance, an unwavering commitment to justice, and an unyielding determination to assert his authority. These early experiences not only prepared him to claim the English crown but also forged the foundation of one of medieval Europe's most consequential reigns. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. Henry II and the Angevin Empire, cultural diversity and territorial challenges. The Angevin Empire under Henry II, reigned 1154 to 1189, was one of the most intricate political constructs of the High Middle Ages. Stretching from the Scottish borders to the Pyrenees, this composite dominion encompassed England, Normandy, Anjou, Maine, Touraine, Brittany, Aquitaine, and parts of Ireland. It was neither a state nor a homogeneous entity, but rather a collection of territories, each with distinct cultural, legal, and linguistic frameworks. This inherent heterogeneity necessitated extraordinary administrative and political ingenuity to sustain. Henry's reign exemplifies the challenges of ruling such a disparate assemblage, as his authority relied on a delicate balance of pragmatism, reform, and coercion. Let's explore the cultural diversity within the Angevin Empire, delves into the unique challenges posed by governing specific territories like Normandy, Aquitaine, and Ireland, and scrutinizes Henry's fractious relationship with the French crown, particularly his rivalry with Louis VII. The cultural diversity of the Angevin Empire. The Angevin Empire was marked by profound cultural, linguistic, and legal diversity. England, for instance, boasted a well-established administrative apparatus rooted in Anglo-Saxon traditions, such as shire courts and a centralized treasury system. Normandy, by contrast, retained its feudal customs, emphasizing ducal prerogatives. Further south, Aquitaine exhibited cultural affinities with the Mediterranean, characterized by its troubadour poetry, Romanesque architecture, and decentralized nobility. This diversity extended to linguistic practices. Latin functioned as the lingua franca for administration and ecclesiastical affairs, but vernacular languages, including Old English, Norman French, Occitan, and Gaelic, prevailed locally. Similarly, legal traditions diverged sharply. England's nascent common law system coexisted with feudal codes in Normandy and customary practices in Aquitaine. This plurality posed significant challenges to Henry, requiring him to eschew uniformity in favor of a flexible, localized approach to governance. His reliance on itinerant justices, regional administrators, and an adaptable fiscal policy reflected his keen understanding of these complexities. Henry's governance was fundamentally pragmatic. Recognizing the futility of imposing centralized control over regions with entrenched local traditions, he sought to co-opt existing systems of power. For instance, in Normandy, he reinforced ducal authority by aligning his policies with feudal norms, while in England, he expanded royal jurisdiction through judicial and fiscal reforms. This adaptability was not without its limits, as the empire's inherent fragmentation rendered it vulnerable to internal dissension and external aggression. Normandy, the strategic core of the empire. Normandy was the linchpin of the Angevin Empire, serving as the crucial link between England and the continental territories. Its geographic position, agricultural wealth, and robust trade networks endowed it with strategic and economic significance. Furthermore, its proximity to Paris placed it at the forefront of Henry's rivalry with the French crown. The Duchy's administrative sophistication provided a template for Angevin governance. Building on a tradition of strong ducal authority, Henry fortified his control by appointing loyal officials and establishing the Exchequer of Rouen, a financial institution modelled on its English counterpart. These measures ensured efficient revenue collection and reinforced ducal supremacy. However, Normandy's position as a former French possession rendered it a perennial source of contention. Henry's marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, which brought vast territories into the Angevin fold, exacerbated French anxieties about encirclement. Louis VII, perceiving Henry's ascendancy as a direct threat, sought to destabilize Normandy through diplomatic and military maneuvers. These external pressures were compounded by internal challenges, as Norman nobles occasionally resisted Henry's fiscal and judicial policies. Despite these obstacles, Henry's adept management preserved Normandy's pivotal role within the empire. Aquitaine, a land of independence and challenges. Aquitaine was the largest and most culturally distinct of Henry's continental possessions. Its immense wealth, derived from wine production and trade, bolstered the Angevin treasury, while its vibrant cultural scene, epitomized by the troubadour tradition, enhanced the empire's prestige. Nevertheless, Aquitaine's feudal structure posed significant governance challenges. Unlike Normandy, where ducal authority was firmly entrenched, Aquitaine's powerful barons operated with considerable autonomy, often acting as de facto rulers of their domains. Henry's authority in Aquitaine derived largely from his marriage to Eleanor, whose inheritance brought the region under Angevin control. However, Eleanor's influence was both an asset and a liability. As a native of Aquitaine, she facilitated Henry's initial consolidation of power, but her eventual rebellion, alongside their sons, exposed the fragility of Angevin authority in the region. The revolt of 1173 to 1174 underscored the difficulty of reconciling the ambitions of Aquitaine's nobility with Henry's centralized vision. To govern Aquitaine, Henry relied on itinerant courts and trusted officials to mediate disputes and enforce royal authority. However, his efforts were frequently undermined by the region's deeply ingrained traditions of feudal independence. The Count of Toulouse, for example, persistently challenged Angevin claims, diverting resources and attention from other priorities. Despite these challenges, Aquitaine remained a vital component of the empire, contributing significantly to its economic and cultural vitality. Ireland, expanding influence and mixed success. Henry II's intervention in Ireland represents a significant, albeit contentious, chapter in Angevin expansion. In 1171, Henry became the first English monarch to set foot in Ireland, seeking to assert control over a fragmented and divided island. His intervention was prompted by the activities of Anglo-Norman adventurers like Richard de Clare, Strongbow, whose alliance with Gaelic King Diarmait mac Murchada threatened to destabilize the region. Henry's expedition aimed to consolidate Angevin influence while curbing the ambitions of independent lords. He secured the submission of several Gaelic rulers and established the Pale, a zone of direct Angevin administration centered around Dublin. The Synod of Cashel in 1172 further aligned the Irish Church with Roman practices, bolstering Henry's claims to legitimacy. Despite these achievements, Henry's control over Ireland remained tenuous. Beyond the Pale, Gaelic clans retained their autonomy, and their periodic resistance underscored the limitations of Angevin authority. The decentralized nature of Irish society, characterized by clan-based governance and regional rivalries, complicated efforts to impose centralized administration. Additionally, Henry's broader imperial commitments limited the resources he could allocate to Ireland, leaving its integration incomplete. Cultural and political disparities further hindered Angevin ambitions in Ireland. The Gaelic system of kingship, predicated on regional autonomy and shifting allegiances, clashed with Henry's centralized vision. Efforts to extend English legal and administrative systems were met with resistance, reflecting the broader difficulties of incorporating Ireland into the Angevin framework. Tensions with the French crown. Henry II's relationship with Louis VII of France was marked by mutual suspicion and hostility, rooted in the complex dynamics of feudal hierarchy and personal rivalry. As Duke of Normandy and Count of Anjou, Henry was technically a vassal of the French king, yet his extensive holdings far exceeded those of his nominal overlord. This asymmetry fueled tensions that permeated their interactions. The situation was exacerbated by Henry's marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, Louis's former wife. This union not only deprived Louis of Aquitaine but also elevated Henry to a position of unparalleled power in Western Europe. Louis responded by seeking to undermine Henry through alliances with rival powers and support for rebellions within the Angevin Empire, most notably the revolt of Henry's sons. The Treaty of Montmirail in 1169 sought to alleviate these tensions by dividing Henry's lands among his sons, who would hold them as vassals of the French crown. However, this arrangement failed to resolve the underlying power struggle, as Henry retained ultimate authority over his territories. The rivalry between the Plantagenets and Capetians would persist, shaping the geopolitical landscape of medieval Europe. Henry's dealings with the French crown highlight the limitations of his imperial ambitions. While his military and administrative capabilities allowed him to maintain control over his vast domains, the persistent threat from France exposed the vulnerabilities of the Angevin Empire. This ongoing conflict underscored the broader challenges of sustaining a multi-territorial polity in an era defined by feudal fragmentation. Conclusion. Henry II's reign over the Angevin Empire exemplifies the complexities of medieval governance. His ability to administer a diverse and sprawling dominion was a testament to his political acumen and innovative reforms. From the strategic heartland of Normandy to the culturally distinct regions of Aquitaine and Ireland, Henry navigated a labyrinth of local customs, feudal obligations, and external threats. His pragmatic approach, characterized by adaptability and decentralization, enabled him to sustain the empire during his lifetime. Nevertheless, the Angevin Empire's inherent diversity and the centrifugal forces at play rendered it inherently unstable. The tensions between regional autonomy and centralized authority, coupled with the external pressures exerted by the French crown, foreshadowed the empire's eventual disintegration. Despite its ephemeral nature, the Angevin Empire left an indelible mark on the political and cultural development of medieval Europe, and Henry's legacy endures as a pivotal figure in the history of the High Middle Ages. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious. Thomas Becket, canonized as St. Thomas of Canterbury, stands as an emblematic figure in the annals of medieval English history, whose career, ecclesiastical authority, and ultimate martyrdom profoundly reshaped the interplay between church and state. Born on December 21, 1119, in London, Becket emerged from modest Norman origins to occupy one of the most pivotal religious offices in England. His complex and transformative relationship with King Henry II, culminating in his assassination in Canterbury Cathedral in 1170, has left an enduring legacy of moral resistance to political encroachment on ecclesiastical prerogatives. Let's examine Becket's life through the lens of his ascension, conflict with royal authority, and the enduring implications of his martyrdom. Early life and formative education. Thomas Becket's origins are rooted in the mercantile ambitions of his father, Gilbert, a prosperous London merchant of Norman descent, and his mother, Matilda, whose lineage afforded modest property ownership. Despite their socio-economic constraints, the Becket family prioritized intellectual cultivation, which facilitated Thomas's enrollment in London's ecclesiastical schools. Demonstrating an aptitude for rhetoric and intellectual rigor, Becket later pursued advanced studies in Paris. His exposure to scholastic traditions and ecclesiastical legal frameworks at Paris served as a crucible for his development into a formidable cleric and administrator. These formative years not only honed Becket's intellectual abilities but also imbued him with a deep understanding of the interplay between secular and ecclesiastical powers. Upon his return to England, Becket entered the service of Theobald of Bec, then Archbishop of Canterbury. Theobald's mentorship proved instrumental, granting Becket access to elite networks and opportunities to refine his expertise in canon law. Theobald recognized Becket's aptitude, dispatching him to study at Bologna and Auxerre, premier centers of ecclesiastical jurisprudence. These experiences fortified Becket's reputation as a skilled and versatile cleric, paving the way for his rapid ascent within the Church's administrative hierarchy. His growing expertise positioned him as a pivotal figure capable of navigating the complexities of church-state relations. Ascendancy to power and secular alliances. Becket's trajectory intersected decisively with secular power in 1154, when Archbishop Theobald recommended him to King Henry II for the office of Chancellor. As Chancellor, Becket wielded considerable authority over royal finances and legal administration, efficiently consolidating the crown's power while enjoying an intimate rapport with Henry II. His tenure was marked by administrative acuity and a penchant for extravagance that mirrored the grandeur of royal ambition. Becket's ability to manage complex political and financial systems made him indispensable to the king, fostering a bond that transcended mere professional collaboration. This period, characterized by mutual trust and camaraderie between Becket and the king, laid the groundwork for the later rupture that would reverberate throughout Christendom. In 1162, following Theobald's death, Henry II nominated Becket as Archbishop of Canterbury, likely envisioning his trusted confidant as a pliable ally who would subdue the Church's autonomy. However, Becket's elevation to the episcopate precipitated a dramatic transformation. Renouncing his opulent lifestyle, Becket embraced an austere existence, reorienting his priorities toward spiritual integrity and ecclesiastical independence. This metamorphosis initiated a conflict that epitomized the perennial struggle between temporal and spiritual jurisdictions. Becket's newfound role demanded a profound redefinition of his loyalties, pitting his spiritual convictions against his former allegiance to royal authority. The ecclesiastical-royal confrontation. Becket's tenure as archbishop quickly became embroiled in the contentious debate over the constitutions of Clarendon in 1164. These legislative measures sought to curtail clerical privileges, including the autonomy of church courts and the unfettered exercise of papal authority in England. Initially acquiescing under duress, Becket soon recanted, asserting the supremacy of ecclesiastical law and rejecting royal interference. His stance, uncompromising and resolute, positioned him as a defender of canonical principles against the encroachments of secular governance. This defiance underscored the broader ideological clash between the emerging centralized monarchy and the enduring influence of the Church. The escalating confrontation forced Becket into exile in France, where he garnered the support of Pope Alexander III and sympathetic European monarchs. During his 6-year exile, Becket articulated a vision of ecclesiastical sovereignty that resonated across Christendom, consolidating his stature as a symbol of resistance. His correspondence with the papacy and influential figures across Europe reinforced his position as a defender of church autonomy. Despite protracted negotiations and intermittent reconciliatory overtures, Becket's return to England in 1170 was fraught with tension. His excommunication of royalist bishops exacerbated the king's ire, setting the stage for the fateful events that would follow. Martyrdom and canonization. On December 29, 1170, 4 knights, Reginald Fitzurse, Hugh de Morville, William de Tracy, and Richard le Breton, confronted Becket in Canterbury Cathedral. Acting on what they perceived to be an implicit royal mandate, the knights murdered Becket in a gruesome act of sacrilege at the altar. The shocking violence of this event reverberated across Europe, galvanizing widespread veneration of Becket as a martyr who had sacrificed his life to uphold the sanctity of the Church. The symbolism of his death underscored the inherent tensions between spiritual authority and temporal power, igniting widespread debates on the legitimacy of such conflicts. Becket's martyrdom elicited immediate repercussions for Henry II, who faced condemnation and was compelled to undertake public acts of penance, including a barefoot pilgrimage to Canterbury and a ritual flogging by monks. These gestures underscored the profound moral authority wielded by the Church in shaping political accountability. In 1173, Pope Alexander III canonized Becket, elevating him to sainthood. His tomb in Canterbury Cathedral became an epicenter of medieval pilgrimage, immortalized in Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. The economic and spiritual significance of his shrine further entrenched his legacy in the medieval consciousness. Legacy, a clash of powers. Becket's legacy is inextricably linked to the enduring dialectic between ecclesiastical autonomy and secular authority. His defiance of royal encroachments reinforced the principle of clerical independence, a cornerstone of canon law that would resonate in subsequent centuries. Becket's martyrdom not only underscored the ethical imperatives of spiritual leadership but also illuminated the fragility of monarchic supremacy when confronted with moral conviction. His life and death embodied the complexities of navigating competing allegiances in a world where religious and political spheres were deeply intertwined. The shrine of St. Thomas Becket became a focal point of medieval religious life, attracting pilgrims who sought spiritual intercession and healing. However, the enduring prominence of his cult rendered it a target during the English Reformation. In 1538, under the aegis of Henry VIII, Becket's shrine was desecrated, and his legacy was denounced as emblematic of papal subversion. This act of destruction symbolized the shifting tides of religious and political authority in Tudor England. Despite these efforts, Becket's story endured, cementing his place as a symbol of resistance to authoritarianism. Cultural and intellectual reverberations. Beyond his historical and religious significance, Becket's life and martyrdom have inspired enduring cultural and intellectual engagement. T.S. Eliot's Murder in the Cathedral and Jean Anouilh's Becket dramatized the moral and existential dilemmas inherent in his defiance of royal power. These works illuminate the perennial tension between duty to conscience and allegiance to temporal authority, rendering Becket's story a timeless parable of ethical fortitude. Additionally, Becket's life has been the subject of scholarly inquiry, reflecting its relevance to broader discussions on the intersection of faith, politics, and societal structures. Thomas Becket occupies a singular place in the history of medieval Europe as a figure whose principled resistance to royal overreach redefined the boundaries of ecclesiastical authority. His transition from a royal confidant to an unwavering advocate for the Church epitomizes the complexities of power, loyalty, and spiritual conviction. Becket's martyrdom catalyzed profound transformations in the political and religious landscape of England, solidifying his legacy as a paragon of moral courage. Through his life and death, Becket exemplifies the enduring struggle to reconcile temporal power with spiritual integrity, a narrative that continues to resonate across the centuries. His enduring influence reflects the timeless challenge of balancing authority, faith, and justice in an ever-evolving societal framework. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious. Henry II's reforms. Henry II of England, 1154 to 1189, stands as one of the most innovative and influential monarchs in medieval European history. His reign marked a paradigm shift in the consolidation of royal power and the establishment of legal and administrative frameworks that profoundly shaped subsequent governance. This analysis explores Henry II's reforms in law, administration, and military organization, alongside his skillful dispute resolution and consolidation of authority, emphasizing his enduring legacy in shaping the English state. Legal reforms. Henry II's reign marked the genesis of a unified legal tradition in England, which significantly influenced the evolution of common law. His judicial reforms, epitomized by the Assize of Clarendon and the Assize of Northampton, were foundational in institutionalizing a centralized and consistent legal framework. The Assize of Clarendon, 1166, and the Assize of Northampton, 1176. The Assize of Clarendon, promulgated in 1166, was a landmark legislative act designed to strengthen the Crown's authority over justice. This measure mandated local juries of presentment to identify and accuse individuals suspected of serious crimes, thus standardizing a process that curtailed arbitrary local practices. These juries, composed of reputable men from the community, were charged with presenting suspected criminals based on communal knowledge rather than personal vendettas. A decade later, the Assize of Northampton, 1176, expanded and refined the principles of the Assize of Clarendon. This legislation prescribed stricter penalties for crimes and enhanced the use of itinerant justices who traveled circuits to enforce royal authority. These justices, empowered to oversee local courts, ensured that judicial practices adhered to standardized royal procedures, significantly diminishing the autonomy of local lords in dispensing justice. The reforms collectively established a robust legal framework that prioritized fairness and uniformity, reinforcing the authority of the Crown. The institutionalization of jury trials. Under Henry II, jury trials became a cornerstone of the English judicial system. Moving away from archaic methods such as trial by ordeal and combat, Henry's reforms introduced evidence-based trials where impartial juries determined guilt or innocence. The jurors, drawn from the local community, were tasked with evaluating testimony and evidence. This innovation represented a significant step toward rational and equitable adjudication. The system's emphasis on collective judgment and empirical evidence laid the groundwork for the modern principle of rule of law, where legal decisions are determined through standardized procedures rather than arbitrary decrees. Jury trials also reduced the influence of feudal lords, transferring judicial power to the Crown and reinforcing the centralization of authority. The evolution of common law. Henry II's legal reforms coalesced into the creation of common law, a unified system of legal principles applicable across England. By standardizing legal procedures and emphasizing judicial precedents, Henry ensured that similar cases were treated uniformly. This principle of stare decisis, adherence to precedent, fostered consistency and predictability, which became hallmarks of common law. The centralization of legal authority under common law also facilitated greater integration of the diverse regions within Henry's Angevin Empire. A uniform legal system mitigated regional disparities and conflicts, fostering cohesion and loyalty to the Crown. The enduring influence of common law extends beyond England, shaping legal systems in former British colonies and embedding principles of equity and justice in modern jurisprudence. Administrative reforms. Henry II's administrative reforms were instrumental in enhancing the efficiency of governance and consolidating royal authority. His innovations in taxation, financial management, and bureaucratic organization fortified the infrastructure of the English state. Innovations in taxation. Henry II revolutionized the fiscal landscape through the introduction of scutage, a monetary payment that vassals could make in lieu of providing military service. This measure allowed the crown to bypass traditional feudal levies, enabling Henry to finance professional armies directly under royal control. Scutage not only increased the crown's financial autonomy but also signaled the monetization of feudal obligations, a critical step toward modern state building. Henry also implemented comprehensive surveys, such as the Cartae Baronum, to assess landholdings and feudal dues. These records provided the crown with detailed knowledge of baronial wealth and obligations, ensuring more accurate taxation and reducing opportunities for evasion. By strengthening fiscal oversight, Henry diminished the power of feudal intermediaries, centralizing revenue collection and augmenting royal authority. Strengthening financial accountability. The Exchequer, England's central financial institution, underwent significant restructuring under Henry II. Regular audits, conducted through viewing the rolls, enforced accountability among sheriffs and other royal officials tasked with revenue collection. This meticulous oversight reduced corruption and inefficiency, bolstering the crown's financial stability. The professionalization of the Exchequer marked a turning point in state administration. By instituting transparent financial practices and fostering a culture of accountability, Henry II laid the foundation for a bureaucratic apparatus capable of supporting the expanding demands of governance. This system provided the crown with the resources to implement ambitious policies and maintain stability across the Angevin Empire. Centralization of governance. Henry II's administrative reforms extended beyond financial management to the broader organization of governance. He established a centralized bureaucracy staffed by educated clerks and officials loyal to the crown. This professionalization reduced the influence of regional magnates and ensured more consistent implementation of royal policies. The use of royal writs, standardized documents communicating the king's commands, further streamlined governance. These writs eliminated ambiguities in royal directives and facilitated efficient communication between the crown and local administrators. The centralization of administrative authority not only enhanced governance but also reinforced the monarchy's legitimacy as the ultimate arbiter of law and policy. Military organization. Henry II's military reforms were integral to the consolidation of royal authority and the stabilization of his vast territories. By restructuring feudal obligations and investing in professional armies, he reduced reliance on baronial forces and fortified the crown's military capacity. Scutage and professional armies. The introduction of scutage exemplified Henry's pragmatic approach to military organization. By allowing vassals to pay a fee instead of providing knights, Henry generated revenue to hire professional soldiers directly loyal to the crown. This shift diminished the military power of feudal lords and enabled the king to maintain a standing army capable of responding swiftly to threats. Professional armies offered several advantages over traditional feudal levies, including greater reliability and extended service periods. This capability was crucial for defending the extensive Angevin territories, which spanned England, Normandy, Anjou, and Aquitaine. Scutage thus represented a pivotal step toward modernizing military structures and consolidating royal authority. Castle control and defense. Henry II also implemented reforms to fortifications, asserting royal control over the construction and maintenance of castles. By restricting baronial fortification efforts and dismantling unauthorized strongholds, Henry curtailed the potential for rebellion and fortified his own defensive infrastructure. Investments in royal castles symbolized the king's dominance and provided strategic military advantages. These strongholds served as administrative centers and defensive bulwarks, deterring internal dissent and projecting the crown's authority across the realm. Resolving disputes and consolidating authority. Henry II's reign was characterized by his adept resolution of conflicts and his unwavering commitment to consolidating royal authority. His ability to navigate complex political and ecclesiastical disputes underscored his strategic acumen and reinforced the monarchy's supremacy. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more explorations in medieval history. Stay curious. Henry II's family conflicts. Henry II of England's reign, 1154 to 1189, epitomized the paradox of medieval kingship, remarkable achievements in governance and territorial expansion shadowed by the relentless instability wrought by familial discord. His consolidation of the Angevin Empire remains a testament to his administrative acumen, yet the rebellions of his sons, Henry the Young King, Richard the Lionheart, Geoffrey, and John, alongside the calculated opposition of his queen, Eleanor of Aquitaine, undermined his rule and legacy. These conflicts were not confined to the private sphere, they became pivotal political crises that drained the crown's resources, fractured alliances, and catalyzed the eventual fragmentation of his empire. Let's critically examine the underlying causes, dynamics, and far-reaching consequences of these familial rebellions, illuminating the interplay between personal ambition and the structural vulnerabilities of dynastic rule. The revolts of Henry's sons. Henry the Young King, ambition without authority. Henry the Young King, the eldest of Henry II's surviving sons, occupies a singular place in the annals of medieval history as a crowned co-monarch who wielded no substantive power. In 1170, Henry II orchestrated the coronation of his son to secure the succession and reinforce dynastic stability. Yet this symbolic act of elevation masked a deeper structural flaw. Henry the Young King was granted neither autonomous lands nor the revenues necessary to sustain a court. This disjunction between his title and practical authority sowed the seeds of his rebellion. By 1173, these frustrations coalesced into open revolt. The young king allied with his brothers, Richard and Geoffrey, and sought support from Henry's enemies, including King Louis VII of France and discontented Anglo-Norman barons. The subsequent revolt of 1173 to 1174, though ultimately suppressed, exposed the tenuous balance underpinning the Angevin political order. Even after reconciliation, the young king's discontent persisted. He cultivated a following through lavish patronage of tournaments, casting himself as a charismatic alternative to his father's stern rule. His untimely death in 1183 curtailed his aspirations but exacerbated tensions among his surviving brothers, particularly between Richard and John, as the struggle for succession intensified. This death not only deprived the Angevin Empire of a potential unifying figure but also entrenched rivalries among the remaining heirs, whose ambitions became increasingly incompatible with shared governance. Richard the Lionheart, the calculating heir. Richard, Henry's second surviving son, is celebrated as a warrior king, yet his relationship with his father was marked by relentless ambition and antagonism. Richard's control over Aquitaine, inherited through Eleanor, became a focal point of friction. From an early age, Richard exhibited a fierce determination to assert his autonomy, aligning with his brothers during the revolt of 1173 to 1174 and engaging in military campaigns to quell unrest in his duchy. Richard's ambitions expanded beyond Aquitaine, culminating in his desire to lead a crusade. However, his insistence on securing his inheritance before embarking on this venture exacerbated tensions with Henry II. By the late 1180s, Richard's alliance with Philip II Augustus of France against his father marked a decisive shift. Together, they launched a coordinated campaign that forced Henry to capitulate in 1189. The betrayal by Richard, compounded by his martial prowess, dealt a crushing blow to Henry's authority and health. Richard's eventual ascension to the throne underscored his singular focus on personal advancement, a trait that made him both an indomitable leader and a source of instability within the Angevin polity. His interactions with Henry II revealed the inherent volatility of the Angevin inheritance structure, where overlapping claims and territorial ambitions clashed irreconcilably. Geoffrey of Brittany, the strategist of discord. Geoffrey, Henry's third son, distinguished himself as a shrewd and calculating political operator. As Duke of Brittany through his marriage to Constance, Geoffrey leveraged his position to challenge his father's authority and forge alliances with other discontented factions. Unlike his brothers, Geoffrey's rebellions were often indirect, characterized by strategic manipulations and opportunistic alignments rather than outright confrontation. His mastery of court politics and his ability to exploit rivalries within the Angevin Empire marked him as a uniquely destabilizing force. Geoffrey's untimely death in 1186 during a tournament deprived the Angevin Empire of one of its most enigmatic figures but left a complex legacy. His son, Arthur of Brittany, would later become a focal point of contention, particularly during the reign of John, perpetuating the familial discord that had plagued the Angevin dynasty. Geoffrey's death also destabilized Brittany, a critical region whose autonomy had been carefully negotiated within the Angevin framework, further complicating Henry II's efforts to maintain control. Geoffrey's political machinations, and the vacuum left by his death, highlighted the intricate balancing act required to govern an empire where familial loyalty was always contingent and precarious. John, the opportunist in waiting. John, the youngest of Henry's sons, emerged as both a beneficiary and an agent of the familial discord that defined the latter years of Henry's reign. Derisively nicknamed John Lackland due to his initial lack of territorial holdings, he was often overlooked in favor of his elder brothers. Yet John's political instincts and opportunism became increasingly evident as he matured. Initially loyal to his father, John's eventual defection to Richard and Philip's camp in 1189 dealt a devastating psychological blow to Henry. John's actions during these years foreshadowed the divisive and tumultuous reign that would follow his ascension. His shifting loyalties exemplified the broader disunity within the Angevin family, where personal ambition frequently eclipsed familial solidarity. John's betrayals, though politically expedient, further eroded Henry II's waning authority and underscored the fractious dynamics that plagued the dynasty. His rise to power, despite the betrayals of his formative years, demonstrated the persistence of familial ties as both a source of strength and instability within the Angevin political system. Eleanor of Aquitaine, matriarch and instigator. Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most formidable figures of the Middle Ages, played a central role in the familial conflicts that undermined Henry II's reign. Her marriage to Henry had initially bolstered the Angevin Empire, bringing the vast territories of Aquitaine under Henry's control. However, the relationship soured over time, driven by Henry's infidelities and Eleanor's determination to safeguard her own interests and those of her children. Eleanor's active support for her sons during the revolt of 1173 to 1174 marked a turning point. Her participation was not merely maternal but deeply political, rooted in her desire to ensure the autonomy of Aquitaine and the equitable distribution of power among her sons. Henry's response, her imprisonment for nearly 16 years, illustrated the gravity of her challenge to his authority. Yet, even in confinement, Eleanor remained a potent political force, maintaining correspondence with her sons and influencing events from afar. Following Henry's death in 1189, Eleanor emerged as a key supporter of Richard's reign, orchestrating his succession and managing the realm during his absence on crusade. Her resilience and political acumen underscore her pivotal role in shaping the Angevin dynasty. Eleanor's legacy as both instigator and stabilizer highlights the duality of her influence. She was simultaneously a source of rebellion and a linchpin of Angevin cohesion. Her actions encapsulated the complexities of medieval queenship, where influence often transcended formal power to shape the destinies of dynasties. The consequences for Henry II's reign and legacy. The family conflicts that characterized Henry II's reign had profound and far-reaching consequences. Militarily, the repeated rebellions necessitated extensive campaigns to suppress uprisings across England, Normandy, and Anjou, diverting resources from external threats and administrative reforms. The revolt of 1173 to 1174 alone stretched Henry's forces to their limits, exposing vulnerabilities that his rivals, particularly Louis VII and later Philip II Augustus, were quick to exploit. Politically, the betrayals by his sons eroded the king's authority, both within his family and among his vassals. The alliances forged between his sons and external enemies, notably the French crown, undermined the territorial integrity of the Angevin Empire. The loss of Normandy to Philip II in 1189, facilitated by Richard's rebellion, marked a critical turning point that foreshadowed the empire's eventual disintegration. On a personal level, these conflicts exacted a severe toll on Henry. The repeated betrayals, particularly by Richard and John, devastated him, contributing to his physical decline and embittering his final years. His death in 1189, reportedly lamenting his shame as a conquered king, epitomized the tragic trajectory of a ruler whose immense accomplishments were overshadowed by familial strife. In terms of legacy, Henry II's reign underscores the inherent tensions within the Angevin system of governance. His reliance on delegating authority to his sons and vassals created opportunities for rebellion and dissent. While his legal and administrative reforms endure as testaments to his vision, the familial discord that marred his reign serves as a cautionary tale about the vulnerabilities of dynastic politics. These conflicts not only destabilized his rule but also set the stage for the fragmentation of the Angevin Empire under his successors. The Angevin experience exemplifies the precarious balance between central authority and familial decentralization in medieval governance, a balance that Henry's successors would struggle to restore. Conclusion. Henry II's family conflicts were not mere domestic squabbles but defining episodes in the history of the Angevin Empire. The rebellions of his sons and the role of Eleanor of Aquitaine illustrate the intricate interplay of personal ambition, political necessity, and dynastic ambition that shaped medieval monarchy. These conflicts drained the crown's resources, destabilized the empire, and tarnished Henry's legacy. Yet they also offer enduring insights into the complexities of leadership and the perennial challenges of reconciling familial loyalty with the demands of power. Ultimately, the story of Henry II and his family is one of brilliance and tragedy, a poignant reflection of the human dimensions of medieval kingship, where the pursuit of power often came at the expense of unity and stability. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious. The later years of Henry II and his legacy. The later years of Henry II of England's reign stand as a profound study in the interplay between personal decline and political disintegration. Characterized by the king's deteriorating health, escalating familial betrayal, and strategic defeats, this period provides a crucial lens for understanding the multifaceted challenges that defined the Angevin dynasty. His death at Chinon in 1189 not only closed the chapter on a reign of extraordinary administrative and military innovation but also heralded a new and turbulent era for his successors. Let's examine the nuanced dynamics of Henry's waning authority, his ultimate defeat by his son Richard and Philip II of France, and the significant ramifications of his death for the medieval European political landscape. The decline of health and the fractured dynasty. By the mid-1180s, the physical vitality that had once defined Henry II's reign was visibly waning. Chronic conditions, likely including advanced arthritis and recurring intestinal ailments, compounded by the unrelenting demands of governance and military campaigning, rendered the king increasingly incapacitated. This physical decline coincided with an intensification of familial discord, as Henry's sons openly pursued their own ambitions at the expense of their father's authority. This convergence of personal and dynastic crises underscored the fragility of the Angevin Empire. While tensions within the royal family were not new, they reached their zenith during this period. The Great Revolt of 1173 to 1174, led by Henry the Young King, Richard, and Geoffrey, had already fractured the royal household, and the death of the young king in 1183 did little to restore equilibrium. Instead, Richard, Duke of Aquitaine, emerged as the most prominent challenger to Henry's authority. A critical source of tension arose from Henry's insistence that Richard relinquish Aquitaine to his younger brother John, a demand that Richard categorically rejected. The king's inability to enforce his will deepened the rift between father and son, setting the stage for a broader conflict that would encompass the entire Angevin dominion. The stakes of these familial betrayals were immense, given the vast territorial span of the Angevin Empire. Extending from England to the Pyrenees, the empire's cohesion relied on the active cooperation of its constituent rulers, especially Henry's sons. However, the brothers were more interested in consolidating their own power than in upholding their father's vision of unity. Geoffrey's death in 1186 removed one rival from the equation but heightened the animosity between Richard and John. Henry's evident favoritism toward John further alienated Richard, driving him into a politically advantageous alliance with Philip II of France. Henry's declining health exacerbated these tensions. Reports from chroniclers emphasize that his physical ailments left him increasingly reliant on his advisors and weakened his capacity for direct leadership. The once formidable ruler who had dominated European politics now appeared vulnerable, a factor that emboldened his adversaries both within and outside his family. His diminishing physical resilience mirrored the unraveling of his political authority, creating a feedback loop in which personal frailty and political instability reinforced one another. The ascendancy of Philip II and the collapse of Henry's power. Philip II of France emerged as a pivotal figure in the final unraveling of Henry II's authority. A calculating and ambitious monarch, Philip Adept exploited the divisions within the Angevin family to destabilize Henry's control. His partnership with Richard proved particularly consequential, as it combined Philip's strategic acumen with Richard's military prowess to devastating effect. Together, they launched a sustained campaign to undermine Henry's territorial holdings and diminish his prestige. The climactic phase of this conflict occurred in 1189. Besieged by illness and despair, Henry confronted a formidable coalition led by Richard and Philip. The fall of Le Mans, a city intimately tied to Henry's early life and symbolic of his rule, marked a critical moment in this campaign. Richard's forces, bolstered by Philip's resources, captured the city, forcing Henry into a humiliating retreat. This defeat not only weakened Henry militarily but also dealt a profound psychological blow, as he grappled with the erosion of his authority and the loyalty of his subjects. The Treaty of Azala-Rideau, signed in July 1189, formalized Henry's capitulation. Its terms were starkly humiliating. Henry was compelled to recognize Richard as his heir and cede significant concessions to Philip. The most devastating revelation, however, came when Henry learned that John, his previously trusted son, had also joined the rebellion against him. This ultimate betrayal reportedly shattered the king's spirit, prompting his lament, "Now let all things go as they will, I care no more for myself or for the world." Henry's concessions under the treaty represented more than the loss of territory, they signaled the dissolution of his authority as a monarch. The Angevin Empire, so painstakingly constructed over decades, was now fragmenting under the weight of internal discord and external pressure. This disintegration underscored the ephemeral nature of medieval empire building, where personal relationships and military might were often the only glue holding vast realms together. Death at Chinon and the aftermath. Following his defeat, Henry withdrew to Chinon, a fortress in Anjou, where his health deteriorated rapidly. Suffering from what modern historians suggest was a combination of sepsis and heart failure, the king's final days were marked by acute physical pain and emotional torment. Chroniclers recount that he died cursing his sons, particularly Richard, whom he blamed for orchestrating his downfall. On July 6, 1189, Henry II succumbed to his illnesses at the age of 56. The atmosphere at Chinon in Henry's final days was one of profound desolation. Reports describe a monarch physically ravaged and emotionally broken, isolated from the familial bonds that had once formed the core of his empire. His death was witnessed by only a handful of loyal attendants, a stark contrast to the grandeur that had characterized his earlier reign. This lonely demise symbolized the ultimate cost of the betrayals and conflicts that had defined his later years. Henry's death left a significant void in the political landscape of medieval Europe. Richard I ascended to the throne, but the empire he inherited was deeply fractured. Years of internal strife and external pressures had eroded the cohesion of the Angevin territories, and Richard's reign, while marked by military exploits, did little to restore stability. The Angevin Empire's gradual disintegration accelerated under subsequent rulers, culminating in the eventual loss of many continental holdings. Henry's death also shifted the balance of power in favor of Philip II. By systematically weakening the Angevin dynasty, Philip positioned France to pursue greater centralization and territorial expansion. This realignment of power would have profound implications for the future of both England and France, setting the stage for centuries of rivalry. Philip's success in undermining the Angevin Empire highlighted the strategic importance of exploiting internal divisions within rival dynasties, a lesson that would echo through European history. Historical interpretation and legacy. The twilight years of Henry II's reign epitomized the inherent vulnerabilities of medieval kingship, where personal relationships and political imperatives were often at odds. Henry's legacy as a lawgiver and administrator is undeniable. His reforms laid the foundation for many aspects of English governance. However, his inability to reconcile with his sons and his underestimation of Philip II's ambitions ultimately undermined his achievements. Scholars have long debated the extent to which Henry's decline was a product of his personal failings versus the structural challenges of the Angevin Empire. Some argue that the empire's sheer size and diversity rendered it inherently unstable, while others contend that Henry's favoritism and failure to establish clear lines of succession exacerbated existing tensions. Regardless of the precise causes, Henry's downfall illustrates the precarious nature of power in a world governed by shifting alliances and familial rivalries. In sum, the later years of Henry II's reign and his eventual death at Chinon stand as a poignant reminder of the complexities of medieval rule. His reign, though marked by extraordinary accomplishments, underscores the limits of authority and the enduring costs of political ambition in a volatile and unforgiving era. The trajectory of his later years, from his declining health and familial betrayals to his ultimate defeat, continues to resonate as a testament to the fragility of even the most formidable empires and the profound interplay between personal and political vulnerabilities. Henry II's legacy, influence, legal reforms, and historiographical interpretations. Henry II of England, the inaugural Plantagenet king, ruled from 1154 to 1189, ushering in a period of profound transformation in English governance and law. His reign established enduring patterns of kingship that shaped the monarchy for generations. Renowned for his legal innovations, centralization of authority, and formidable political acumen, Henry II's legacy remains a subject of intense scholarly scrutiny. Let us examine in more depth his influence on subsequent English monarchs, the far-reaching implications of his legal reforms, and historiographical interpretations of his reign, emphasizing the interplay between his substantial achievements and personal shortcomings. In analyzing his legacy, one must appreciate both the durability of his institutional changes and the challenges posed by his personal and political relationships, which collectively reveal the complexity of his kingship. Influence on subsequent English kings. Henry II's sons, Richard I and John, inherited not only the vast Angevin Empire but also the complex challenges and institutional frameworks he created. Their divergent reigns illuminate the strengths and limitations of Henry's political and administrative legacy, offering lessons in the precarious balance between centralized authority and the need for political flexibility. Richard I, warrior king and custodian of empire. Richard I, celebrated as the Lionheart, exemplified the martial and administrative legacies of his father. Henry's efforts to consolidate the Angevin Empire laid the groundwork for Richard's ambitious military campaigns, particularly the Third Crusade. Henry's establishment of a robust administrative system, including a centralized treasury and an itinerant judiciary, ensured the empire's stability during Richard's prolonged absences. Indeed, Henry's financial systems funded the immense costs of Richard's crusading efforts, highlighting the enduring utility of his fiscal policies. Nonetheless, Richard's reliance on Henry's administrative structures exposed their limitations. His prioritization of military exploits, financed through heavy taxation, strained relations with his subjects and destabilized the empire's internal cohesion. This tension underscores the precarious balance between central authority and local governance that Henry had skillfully managed. While Richard's military successes elevated the prestige of the English crown, his inattention to domestic governance revealed the inherent vulnerability of Henry's imperial model when leadership prioritized external ventures over internal stability. John, the struggle to uphold a legacy. John's reign revealed the fragility of Henry's achievements when entrusted to a less adept monarch. While Henry had centralized royal authority, this often came at the expense of alienating key stakeholders such as the barons and clergy. John's autocratic tendencies and fiscal demands intensified these tensions, culminating in the baronial revolt and the issuance of Magna Carta in 1215. This pivotal document, while often viewed as a repudiation of royal overreach, relied heavily on the procedural and administrative systems Henry had established. The geopolitical vulnerabilities of the Angevin Empire, which Henry had maintained through personal dynamism and administrative innovations, became apparent under John. The loss of Normandy in 1204 exemplifies the structural weaknesses of an empire reliant on a strong central figure. Yet, John's dependence on Henry's legal and financial reforms highlights their enduring significance, even amidst political upheaval. The eventual institutionalization of Magna Carta's principles illustrates how Henry's reforms provided a framework for balancing monarchical power with emerging notions of accountability. Legal reforms and their impact on governance. Henry II's legal reforms represent one of his most enduring contributions, fundamentally transforming the administration of justice in England and influencing broader European legal traditions. These reforms laid the foundation for English common law and redefined the relationship between the monarchy and its subjects. Their longevity attests to their foundational role in shaping the English legal tradition and their adaptability to evolving political contexts. Centralization of justice. Driven by the need to consolidate royal authority, Henry implemented sweeping changes to standardize the judicial process. The Assize of Clarendon, 1166, and the Assize of Northampton, 1176, introduced systematic procedures for criminal justice, including the deployment of royal justices on circuit. These measures curtailed the power of feudal courts and extended the Crown's influence over legal adjudication. By doing so, Henry established a model of governance that prioritized centralized, impartial justice over localized, feudal arbitration. A pivotal innovation was the introduction of the jury system, initially as a mechanism for presenting accusations. Over time, this evolved into a cornerstone of English common law, emphasizing communal participation and procedural fairness. Henry's reforms marked a significant departure from traditional modes of trial, such as ordeal or combat, fostering a more rational and consistent legal framework. This innovation not only enhanced the accessibility of justice but also strengthened the Crown's role as the ultimate arbiter of disputes, embedding royal authority more deeply in local governance. Expansion of royal jurisdiction. Henry's reforms expanded royal jurisdiction at the expense of ecclesiastical and feudal courts. The Constitutions of Clarendon, 1164, sought to clarify the boundaries between secular and ecclesiastical authority, particularly in prosecuting criminal clerics. This effort, while inciting a protracted conflict with Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, underscored Henry's commitment to asserting royal supremacy over legal matters. Though the controversy surrounding Becket's murder has overshadowed this initiative, the broader outcome was a more clearly defined scope of royal and ecclesiastical jurisdiction. The widespread use of writs, standardized legal instruments issued by the Crown, facilitated access to royal courts and generated significant revenue. Their popularity reflected the perception of royal courts as more impartial and efficient than feudal alternatives, further entrenching the Crown's role in governance. The writ system also exemplified Henry's pragmatic approach to governance, balancing the Crown's need for revenue with the provision of accessible justice. Influence beyond England. The impact of Henry's legal reforms extended beyond England, shaping governance in the Angevin territories and influencing continental legal traditions. His emphasis on record-keeping and systematic procedures resonated in European administrative practices. Furthermore, the principles of English common law, rooted in Henry's innovations, later informed the legal systems of former British colonies, including the United States, Canada, and India. These enduring legacies underscore the universality of Henry's legal principles and their adaptability to diverse contexts. Historiographical interpretations of Henry II. Henry II's reign has inspired a rich historiographical tradition, characterized by a dialectic between admiration for his achievements and critique of his personal flaws. Scholars continue to debate the extent to which his policies were driven by visionary reform versus pragmatic expediency. The evolution of historical interpretations reflects broader shifts in historiographical focus, from institutional histories to nuanced analyses of political and personal dynamics. Henry as a reformist monarch. Traditional historiography, informed by chroniclers such as William of Newburgh and Roger of Howden, often portrays Henry as a reformist monarch whose innovations in governance laid the groundwork for modern statecraft. Victorian historians, in particular, celebrated his centralization of authority and commitment to justice, casting him as a precursor to constitutional monarchy. This perspective emphasized his role as a forward-thinking statesman who reshaped the English monarchy into a more robust and centralized institution. Contemporary scholarship has nuanced this perspective, highlighting the pragmatic and sometimes coercive nature of Henry's reforms. For instance, the expansion of royal jurisdiction served not only to promote justice but also to consolidate power. Similarly, The revenue generated from legal processes underscores the fiscal motivations underlying his policies. While undeniably transformative, Henry's reforms were not entirely altruistic. Instead, they reflected a calculated strategy to enhance the Crown's authority while addressing the immediate challenges of governance. Personal flaws and political consequences. Henry's personal shortcomings, including his volatile temperament and contentious relationships with key figures, have significantly influenced interpretations of his reign. The murder of Thomas Becket in 1170, a consequence of Henry's aggressive approach to consolidating authority, remains a defining and controversial episode. While his direct culpability is debated, the incident highlighted the risks of his confrontational style and underscored the limitations of his political strategy. Henry's tumultuous relationships with his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and his sons further complicated his legacy. The revolt of 1173–74, in which his sons allied with Eleanor and foreign powers against him, exposed the vulnerabilities of his empire and underscored the personal dimension of his political challenges. This familial discord, while destabilizing, also reflected the inherent difficulties of maintaining cohesion within a dynastic empire as vast and diverse as the Angevin realm. The duality of Henry's legacy. Historians have grappled with the duality of Henry's legacy, a ruler whose achievements in governance and law were offset by his failures to maintain familial and political harmony. W. L. Warren's biography, Henry II, 1973, epitomizes this balanced approach, acknowledging both his administrative brilliance and his personal destructiveness. Subsequent scholarship has built on this foundation, exploring the interplay of innovation and conflict in his reign. By situating Henry's achievements within the broader context of medieval kingship, modern historians have deepened our understanding of the enduring impact of his rule. Recent studies have delved into the cultural and symbolic dimensions of Henry's kingship, examining his patronage of literature, use of royal imagery, and engagement with intellectual currents. These analyses enrich our understanding of his reign, situating his achievements within the broader context of medieval European monarchy. Moreover, the emphasis on symbolic representations of power reflects the evolving role of the monarchy as both a political and cultural institution during Henry's era. The life and reign of Henry II, one of England's most consequential and transformative monarchs, demand a nuanced exploration of themes that profoundly influenced the medieval period and shaped the trajectory of English and European history. This analysis synthesizes the principal themes of his life and rule, highlighting his enduring impact and the historical currents he navigated. The formative and defining themes of Henry II's life and reign. The restoration and consolidation of royal authority. Ascending to power during the turbulence following King Stephen's reign, Henry II faced the monumental task of restoring order and reasserting royal authority. His efforts to stabilize a fractured polity redefined the monarchy's role, emphasizing centralized governance and the crown's supremacy. Through calculated measures, Henry subdued rebellious barons, reclaimed royal lands, and reasserted control over castles, establishing a stable framework for governance. This restoration of authority not only brought cohesion to a fragmented realm but also set a precedent for the monarchy's ability to command loyalty and enforce law across diverse and far-reaching territories. The development of legal reforms. Henry II's reign marked a watershed moment in the evolution of the English legal system. By institutionalizing reforms through measures such as the Assizes of Clarendon, 1166, and Northampton, 1176, Henry laid the groundwork for what would become the common law tradition. These reforms standardized judicial procedures, expanded the reach of royal justice, and established enduring principles such as the use of juries and reliance on written records. By promoting uniformity and accessibility, Henry's legal innovations not only reinforced royal authority but also established mechanisms of accountability that continue to underpin legal systems globally. Conflict with the Church. The clash between Henry II and the Church, exemplified by his protracted conflict with Archbishop Thomas Becket, epitomizes the enduring struggle between secular and ecclesiastical power in medieval Europe. The Constitutions of Clarendon, 1164, symbolized Henry's attempt to curtail the Church's autonomy and assert royal jurisdiction over clerics. This confrontation culminated in Becket's martyrdom in 1170, a pivotal event that reshaped perceptions of the monarchy's relationship with spiritual authority. The broader implications of this conflict extended far beyond Henry's reign, influencing church-state relations and debates on governance throughout medieval Christendom. The Angevin Empire, a political and geopolitical achievement. Henry II's creation and administration of the Angevin Empire stand as a testament to his political acumen and strategic vision. Spanning territories from the Scottish border to the Pyrenees, the empire's unprecedented expanse posed unique challenges of governance. Henry's ability to navigate diverse legal traditions, cultures, and local power structures was unparalleled, though the empire's inherent instability made it difficult to sustain. The Angevin Empire's eventual fragmentation highlighted the limits of medieval kingship and territorial governance. Nonetheless, its legacy endures as a model of transnational administration and as a precursor to later imperial frameworks. Familial discord and dynastic challenges. Henry's personal life was defined by profound familial discord that mirrored the complexities of dynastic politics in the medieval period. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, a union of political and cultural significance, proved both a source of strength and division. The rebellion of his sons, Henry the Young King, Richard, Geoffrey, and John, against their father underscored the fragility of dynastic unity. These internal conflicts not only complicated Henry's efforts to consolidate power but also revealed the intricate balance between personal loyalty and institutional stability within medieval polities. Despite these challenges, Henry's endeavors secured the continuation of his lineage, though the transitions were often fraught with turmoil. Economic and administrative innovations. Henry II's reign was marked by significant advancements in economic management and administrative efficiency. By refining tax collection systems, standardizing coinage, and developing financial institutions such as the Exchequer, Henry strengthened the economic foundation of his realm. These innovations enabled the effective governance of a sprawling empire and established enduring standards for fiscal accountability and resource management. Such developments reflected Henry's commitment to modernizing the administrative machinery of medieval governance, setting a template for subsequent monarchs. The enduring impact of Henry II's governance. The legacy of Henry II extends far beyond the temporal boundaries of his reign, influencing legal, political, and cultural developments across Europe. His legal reforms laid the cornerstone for the common law tradition, which would serve as a foundational principle for constitutional governance. The emphasis on centralized authority and administrative competence during his reign provided a model for effective statecraft, inspiring future monarchs to adopt similar approaches. The Angevin Empire, despite its eventual dissolution, offered valuable insights into the possibilities and limitations of managing extensive and diverse territories. It prefigured later European empires and highlighted the importance of balancing local autonomy with centralized control. The cultural and political networks fostered by the Angevin realm enriched European civilization and underscored the interconnectedness of medieval polities. Henry's contentious relationship with the Church raised enduring questions about the balance of power between secular and spiritual authorities. The debates ignited during his reign resonated throughout the Middle Ages, shaping the discourse on governance and ecclesiastical influence in European history. Furthermore, Henry II's reign serves as a case study in the complexities of medieval kingship. His successes and failures illuminate the dynamic interplay between personal leadership, institutional frameworks, and the broader socio-political context. As both a reformer and a ruler, Henry grappled with the constraints of his time while leaving a legacy that continues to inform our understanding of power and governance. Henry II's enduring legacy. The reign of Henry II represents a transformative epoch in English and European history. His achievements in restoring royal authority, pioneering legal reforms, and establishing the Angevin Empire reflect his vision and capability as a ruler. Simultaneously, his struggles, whether with the church, his family, or the inherent challenges of governing a vast and heterogeneous domain, underscore the inherent tensions of medieval kingship. The themes of his reign, the pursuit of justice, the consolidation of authority, the intricacies of familial and dynastic politics, and the aspiration to create a lasting legacy, resonate through centuries. Henry II's life offers profound insights into the exercise of power, the fragility of political constructs, and the enduring impact of innovative governance. As a monarch who redefined his world, Henry's legacy continues to inspire and challenge interpretations of medieval kingship and its far-reaching implications for the development of statecraft and law. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.